Daniel had imagined his grandson's birth for months. He had pictured the first cry, the tiny fingers, the moment his son Evan would place the baby in his arms. He never imagined that he would spend that day standing alone in a hospital parking lot, holding a small blue baby blanket while trying not to cry. It had started 20 minutes earlier. Daniel was sitting in the hospital hallway when Evan finally came through the delivery room doors. His face was tired, but he was smiling. "Dad," Evan whispered. "He's here." Daniel stood up so quickly that his chair moved backward. "A boy." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "A boy," he repeated. For months, Daniel had talked about becoming a grandfather. He had even bought a small silver bracelet for the baby. It had no expensive stones. Just the baby's initials were engraved on it. He reached into something for him. Evan smiled. "I knew you would." For one brief moment, everything felt right. Then Claire appeared behind Evan. Evan's wife looked exhausted, but there was something cold in her eyes. "Claire, how are you feeling?" She did not answer. Instead, she looked at the small gift in his hand. "Did you come alone?" Daniel frowned. "Yes, why?" Claire glanced at Evan. "We need some privacy." Daniel looked toward the delivery room. "I only want to see my grandson." "Not now." Daniel thought she was simply tired. He tried to smile. "Of course. He just needs some time, I understand." But Claire did not move. "Daniel, you need to leave." The words hit him harder than he expected. He looked at Evan. His son said nothing. Daniel waited. Surely Evan would say something. Surely he would tell Claire that his father had every right to be there. Daniel had spent years helping Evan. When Evan was 23, he had lost his job. Daniel had paid his rent for 6 months. When Evan got married, Daniel had helped with the wedding. When the couple struggled to afford their first apartment, Daniel had paid the security deposit. He had never asked for anything in return. Now he only wanted to see his grandson. "Evan?" Daniel said quietly. His son looked uncomfortable. "Dad," Claire crossed her arms. "This is exactly what I was talking about." Daniel turned toward her. "What were you talking about? You always make everything about yourself." Daniel stared at her. "I came here for the baby." "You always say that." "I don't understand." Claire took a slow breath. Then she said the sentence Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. "You're not real family." The hallway suddenly felt silent. Daniel looked at her, then at Evan. His son lowered his eyes. That hurt more than the words. Daniel could have argued. He could have reminded Claire of everything he had done. He could have asked her how she could say such a thing after all those years. Instead, he stood quietly. His hand closed around the little blue blanket. He said. Claire looked surprised. Daniel turned toward the elevator. Evan finally spoke. "Dad, wait." Daniel stopped. For 1 second, hope returned. He turned around. Evan looked like he wanted to say something, but Claire moved closer to him. Evan said nothing. Daniel nodded slowly. "Take care of your family." Then the elevator doors opened. Daniel stepped inside. The doors closed. He did not cry until he reached his car. He sat behind the wheel and stared through the windshield. His hands were shaking. The baby blanket lay on the passenger seat. He picked it up. For months, he had imagined wrapping his grandson in it. Now he wondered if he would ever get that chance. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Evan. "Dad, please don't leave." Daniel stared at the screen. A second message appeared. "I need to talk to you." Daniel waited. Nothing came. He started the car. He had decided not to go back. If his own son could stand there while his wife called him a stranger, maybe it was time to stop forcing himself into their lives. He drove out of the hospital parking lot. He had barely reached the main road when his phone rang. Even Daniel almost ignored it. "Dad?" Evan's voice sounded strange. Daniel could hear fear in it. "What happened? Where are you?" "I'm driving home." "No, don't go home." Daniel frowned. "Why?" There was silence. Then Evan whispered, "You need to come back." Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Evan, your wife just told me I'm not family." "I know. You stood there and let her say it." "I know, Dad." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Then why are you calling?" Evan took a shaky breath. "Because I just found something." Daniel slowed the car. "What did you find?" "I can't explain over the phone." "Evan, tell me. I don't know who else to trust." Daniel said nothing. That sentence changed everything. His son had never spoken like that before. Daniel pulled the car to the side of the road. "What did Claire do?" "I don't know yet, you mean?" "I found some papers." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What papers?" Evan lowered his voice. "Dad, did you sign anything recently?" Daniel's heart began beating faster. "No." "Are you sure?" Another silence. Then Evan said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. "Someone tried to use your name." Daniel sat completely still. "Who?" "I don't know." "Where did you find the papers?" "In Claire's bag." Daniel looked back toward the hospital. Only 20 minutes had passed since he left. 20 minutes since Claire had told him he was not real family. 20 minutes since Evan had stayed silent. Now his son was calling him in panic. Daniel remembered something. A few weeks earlier, Claire had asked him a strange question. She had wanted to know if Daniel still had the documents from the money he had used to help Evan buy his house. At the time, Daniel had thought nothing of it. Now the memory made his stomach turn. "Evan," Daniel said slowly.
"What exactly did you find?" His son did not answer.
"Evan, I found your name on a document."
"What kind of document?" "I don't know."
Daniel closed his eyes. Then Evan whispered, "But Dad."
"What?"
"That isn't the worst part." Daniel waited. "I found another document with Mom's signature." Daniel opened his eyes. His mother had been dead for 6 years. "What are you talking about?" "I'll explain when you get here." "Evan, you have to tell me now." "I can't." "Why?" Evan's voice cracked. "Because Claire is looking for me." Daniel sat frozen. "Why would she be looking for you?" Evan whispered one final sentence. "She doesn't know I called you." The call ended. Daniel stared at his phone. For the first time, he understood something. Claire's words in the hospital had not simply been cruel. Maybe she had needed him gone. Maybe she had needed him away before Evan discovered something. Daniel looked at the little blue blanket on the passenger seat. He had left the hospital believing he had been rejected by his family. Now he was beginning to wonder if being pushed out had saved him from something much worse. He started the car again. This time he drove back toward the hospital. But Daniel was no longer going back as the rejected grandfather. He was going back as a father who wanted answers. And somewhere inside that hospital, his son had just discovered a secret that could tear the entire family apart. Daniel reached the hospital in less than 10 minutes. He parked close to the emergency entrance and hurried inside. His mind was racing. Evan had sounded frightened, not angry, not confused, frightened. Daniel walked through the hallway, looking for his son. Nurses moved past him. Somewhere behind the closed doors, babies were crying. Then Daniel saw Evan. He was standing near a vending machine at the end of the hall. His face looked pale. "Dad." Daniel walked toward him. "What happened?" Evan looked around before answering. "Not here." They moved into a small waiting room. Evan closed the door. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Daniel finally said, "Show him to me." Evan pulled a folded document from his jacket. Daniel opened it. His name was printed across the top. But the document was not something Daniel had ever seen. It was connected to the house he had helped Evan buy. Daniel read the first few lines. Then he stopped. "This says I agreed to transfer my interest in the property." Evan nodded. "I know. I never signed this. I know." Daniel looked at the signature. It looked almost exactly like his. But there was something wrong. The last letter in his name was slightly different. Daniel had signed legal papers hundreds of times. He knew his own handwriting. "This is not my signature." Evan looked down. "That's what I thought." Daniel turned the page. A second name appeared. His late wife's. Daniel froze. "My wife." Evan nodded. "She signed as a witness." Daniel stared at the page. His wife had been dead for 6 years. This document was dated last month. "I know." Daniel slowly lowered the paper. For a moment, he could not speak. "Where did you get this?" "Claire's bag." Daniel looked at his son. "Why was she carrying it?" "I don't know." "Then ask her." "I tried." "What did she say?" "She said you gave it to her." Daniel almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the lie was so strange. "She said I gave her a document with your dead mother's signature." Evan rubbed his face. "She said you were trying to hide something from me." Daniel sat down. He felt exhausted. "Evan, listen carefully. Your mother never signed this. I watched her sign every important document before she died. This is fake." Evan nodded. "I believe you." Daniel looked at him. "You believe me now?" Evan's eyes filled with shame. "I should have believed you before." Daniel did not answer. There were too many things he wanted to say. Instead, he asked, "Why didn't you defend me today?" Evan looked away. "I was scared." "Of Claire?" Evan nodded. Daniel leaned back. "What has she done?" "Nothing like what you're thinking." "Then tell me." Evan was quiet. Finally, he said, "She has been angry with you for months." "I know." "No, you don't know why." Daniel waited. Evan took a deep breath. "Claire thinks you're trying to control our lives." Daniel shook his head. "I never asked to control anything. She thinks the house is yours. It isn't. She says you could take it away from us." Daniel stared at him. "That house was bought with my money because I wanted you to have a home." "I know. I never asked for rent." "I know." "Then why does she think I'm trying to take it?" Evan had no answer. Daniel looked at him carefully. "Has she been having money problems?" Evan's face changed. That tiny reaction was enough. Daniel knew there was something. "What kind of money problems?" Evan shook his head. "I don't know. You do know something. I saw some bills." "What bills?" "Credit cards, loans, some business payments." Daniel's stomach tightened. "What business?" Evan looked uncomfortable. Claire started an online business last year. I didn't know. She didn't want you to know. Why? She thought you'd judge her. Daniel sighed. He had never judged Claire for trying to work. That still doesn't explain the fake document. I know. The door suddenly opened. Both men turned. Claire stood outside. Her face was calm. Too calm. She looked at Evan. You've been gone a long time. Evan stood. I needed air. Claire's eyes moved to Daniel. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then she looked at the document in Daniel's hand. Her face changed, only for a second. But Daniel saw it, fear, then it disappeared. Where did you get that? Daniel held the paper up. That is my question. Claire looked at Evan. Did you go through my things? Evan did not answer. Claire's voice became sharpest. Evan said, I found this in your bag. Claire's eyes narrowed. You had no right. Daniel stood. Neither did you. Claire looked at him. What are you talking about? This document has my name on it. Yes, and a signature I never gave. Claire crossed her arms. You signed it. No, you did. Daniel looked at Evan. Your father gave me the documents months ago, Claire said. Daniel felt a cold wave move through him. I never gave you anything. Claire shook her head. You always do this. Do what? Pretend you're innocent. Evan looked between them. Claire stepped closer to him. Your father has been trying to control us since the day we got married. Daniel stared at her. That is not true. You paid for our wedding. Yes, you paid for the house. Yes, you put money into Evan's account. Yes, you think that gives you power over us. No, it gives me the right to know when someone is using my name. Claire looked at Evan. See? Daniel noticed something. Claire was not defending herself. She was attacking him. She wanted Evan to stop asking questions. It was working. Evan looked confused again. Daniel knew this pattern. Claire would push him until he became the problem. Daniel took the document and placed it on the table. I'm not arguing here. Claire smiled slightly. Good. Daniel looked at her. But I will have this checked. Her smile disappeared. You don't need to. I do. Evan looked at Claire. Why? Claire turned toward him. Because your father wants to destroy our family. Evan's face tightened. Daniel felt something inside him break. Not because of Claire, because his son still had not told her she was wrong. Daniel picked up the document. Evan, I'm leaving. Daniel raised a hand. Not because she told me to. He looked directly at Claire. I'm leaving because I don't want your son growing up hearing his family fight over him. Claire said nothing. Daniel walked toward the door. Then Evan spoke. Dad. Daniel stopped. Evan looked at him. I found something else. Daniel turned. Evan's voice was barely above a whisper. There was an envelope with the document. Daniel waited. What was inside? Evan swallowed. A copy of your statement. Daniel's face went still. What? And it wasn't just yours. Evan looked toward Claire. It had information about the account you opened for the baby. Daniel's heart dropped. Claire suddenly stepped forward. Evan, stop. Daniel looked at her. For the first time, he saw real fear in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, fear. Daniel slowly turned back to his son. Evan shook his head. I don't know. Daniel asked. Did you tell her about the account? No. Did anyone else know? Evan hesitated. Then he said, Dad. What? There is one more thing. Daniel waited. Evan looked at Claire. She asked the bank about it last week. Claire's face went white. Daniel stared at her. You tried to access my grandson's account. Claire said nothing. Evan took a step backward. Claire. She suddenly turned toward him. You don't understand. Claire looked at Daniel, then at Evan. Her voice became quiet. I needed that money. Daniel felt the room go cold. For what? Claire's eyes filled with tears. But Daniel could tell they were not tears of regret. They were tears of fear. She looked at Evan. Then she said, if that money isn't transferred soon, we're going to lose everything. Evan stared at her. Daniel did not move. The fake document, the dead woman's signature, the bank statement, the baby's account. None of it had been about family. It had been about money. But Daniel still did not know how deep Claire's problem went. And the next thing Evan found in her bag would finally reveal why she had been so desperate to make Daniel disappear. The room became completely silent. Evan stared at Claire. Daniel watched her carefully. For the first time, Claire looked less like the confident woman who had ordered him out of the hospital, and more like someone trapped in a corner. Evan spoke first. How much money do you owe? Claire looked at him. I can fix it. That wasn't my question. She wiped her eyes. It doesn't matter. It matters if you tried to take Dad's money. Claire looked at Daniel. I never took anything, Daniel said. Claire's face hardened. You always think the worst of me. Daniel did not answer. He had learned something important. People who were innocent usually wanted to explain. Claire wanted them to stop asking questions. Evan picked up the document from the table. What is this? Claire reached for it. Give it to me. No, Evan. No. His voice was firmer this time. Claire stopped. Evan looked at the signature. Why does this have Dad's name? He gave it to me. He says he didn't. He's lying. Daniel shook his head. Then show us where I signed it. Claire said nothing. Show us the original. Still nothing. Evan looked at her.
You don't have the original, do you?
Claire turned away. Daniel felt a strange calm settle over him. The truth was beginning to show itself. But then Evan noticed another envelope inside Claire's bag. He pulled it out. Claire moved quickly. Evan stopped. Daniel looked at her. Why? Because it's private. Evan stared at the envelope. My name is on it. Claire said nothing. Evan opened it. Inside were several pages. He read the first one. His face changed. Daniel noticed immediately. What is it? Evan did not answer. He kept reading, then he slowly sat down. Dad. Daniel walked toward him. What did you find? Evan handed him the papers. Daniel looked at the first page. It was a loan notice. The amount was large. Much larger than he expected. There were several more notices: credit cards, personal loans, business debt, late payments. Daniel looked at Evan. How long has this been going on? Evan shook his head. I didn't know. Claire finally spoke. I was going to tell you. When? When I fixed it. With Dad's money. Claire looked away. Evan stood. You lied to me. I was scared you lied. I didn't want you to leave me. Evan stared at her. You tried to take my father's money. I was trying to save our family. No, his voice broke. You were trying to save yourself. Claire began crying, but Evan did not move toward her. Daniel watched his son closely. He had never seen Evan stand up to Claire like this. Still, Daniel knew there was something missing. The debt alone did not explain the fake signature. He looked at the papers again. One line caught his attention. A payment had been made several weeks earlier. The payment came from an account Daniel did not recognize. He pointed to it. What is this? Claire's face changed. Evan looked at the page. I don't know. Daniel studied the number. It isn't. Whose account is it? Evan asked. She remained silent. Evan stepped closer. Claire. She finally whispered. Someone helped me. Who? I can't tell you. Daniel looked at her. That answer made everything worse. Who helped you? Claire shook her head. You wouldn't understand. Daniel felt a chill. Someone else was involved. Someone who had access to Claire's financial problems. Someone who knew about Daniel's money. Someone who knew about the house. He looked at Evan. Have you ever given Claire access to your father's documents? No. Your bank information? No. Your mother's old records? No. Daniel turned toward Claire. Then who did? Claire did not answer. Suddenly, a nurse appeared at the doorway. Yes. Your son needs to come back to the maternity floor. Evan nodded. Is the baby okay? Yes. But the doctor wants the parents there. Evan looked at Claire, then at Daniel. I'll be back. Daniel stopped him. Evan, his son, turned. Do not let anyone sign anything for you. Evan nodded. Daniel added, and don't give Claire access to any accounts. Claire looked furious. You're destroying my marriage. Daniel looked at her. No. He pointed at the papers. Your choices are doing that. Evan walked away. Claire followed him. Daniel stayed behind. He looked down at the fake document again. Something about the signature bothered him. He had seen it before, not on a legal document. Somewhere else. Daniel closed his eyes. Then he remembered. A few months earlier, Claire had asked him to sign a birthday card for her mother. Daniel had laughed at the time. He remembered Claire watching his hand closely. He had thought she was simply being polite. Now he wondered if she had been studying his signature. Daniel immediately took a photograph of the fake document, then another. He sent them to his attorney. A few minutes later, his phone rang. His attorney sounded serious. Daniel, where did you get this? At the hospital. Do not give it back. I wasn't planning to. There is something you need to know. Daniel stood. What? This signature may not have been copied by hand. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? It may have been taken from an older document. Daniel's heart sank. Can you prove that? I need the original. Daniel looked toward the maternity floor. Claire had the original. He suddenly realized something else. If Claire had copied his signature from an old document, she needed access to his personal records. But those records were not in his house. They were stored in a locked cabinet at his old office. Only 3 people knew about that cabinet. Daniel, his attorney, and Evan. Daniel's face went pale. His son had not taken the documents. He trusted Evan completely. But someone else had once been inside that office. Someone Daniel had welcomed. Someone he had never suspected. His phone buzzed. It was a message from his attorney. Check your office before you confront anyone. Daniel stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. Something may already be missing. Daniel left the hospital. He drove straight to his old office. The building was almost empty. He unlocked the front door. Everything looked normal. His desk, his files, the old family photographs. Daniel walked toward the locked cabinet. He entered the code. The door opened. Most of the folders were untouched. Then he saw the empty space. One folder was missing. Daniel knew exactly which one. It contained the original papers from the day he helped Evan buy the house. The same papers that contained his real signature. Daniel slowly stepped backward. Someone had not only copied his signature, someone had planned this, and whoever had taken that folder knew exactly where to find it. Daniel's phone rang again. It was Evan. Daniel answered. "Dad, what happened?" Evan's breathing was heavy. Daniel relaxed for a second. Then Evan said, "But Claire is gone." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean, gone?" "She left the hospital." "Where did she go?" "I don't know." Daniel looked at the empty folder. Then Evan added, "She took my car." Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. "Evan, listen to me. What? Do not go looking for her." "Why?" Daniel looked at the empty space in the cabinet. "Because I think she knows we found out." There was silence. Then Evan whispered, "Dad, what?" "I just found out who she called before she left." Daniel waited. Evan's voice shook. "It was your attorney." Daniel froze. His attorney? That made no sense. Unless Claire had another reason for calling him. Daniel looked at the empty folder again. For the first time, he wondered whether the person he trusted most with his family's secrets might know much more than he had ever admitted. Daniel stood alone in his old office, staring at the empty space inside the cabinet. The missing folder was still difficult to understand. His attorney had told him not to confront anyone. Now Evan had said Claire had called the same attorney before leaving the hospital. Daniel picked up his phone. He called the attorney. The call went to voicemail. Daniel tried again. Nothing that worried him. His attorney, Mr. Harris, had never ignored Daniel's calls. Daniel locked the office and drove home. He did not tell Evan to follow him. He did not tell anyone where he was going. For the first time in years, Daniel felt that he could trust only himself. When he reached home, he checked the front door, locked it, the windows closed. Nothing seemed disturbed. He walked into his study. The room looked exactly as he had left it. Then he noticed the drawer beneath his desk. It was open. Daniel stopped. He knew he had closed it that morning. He walked closer. Inside were old tax papers, insurance records, and copies of property documents. He checked every folder. One was missing, the same type of folder that Claire had taken from his office. Daniel's heart began to beat faster. Someone had been inside his home, and they had not been looking for money. They had been looking for documents. Daniel sat at his desk. He thought about everything that had happened. Claire had asked about the house. She had asked about his savings. She had tried to get information about the baby's account. Someone had copied his signature. Someone had used his dead wife's name. Someone had taken his old property records. This was no longer a family disagreement. It was a plan. Daniel opened his laptop. He checked his bank accounts. Everything looked normal. Then he checked the grandson's account. A warning appeared. Recent access attempt denied. Daniel stared at the screen. Someone had tried again. He called the bank. The manager told him something disturbing. There was an attempt to add a new authorized user. "Who?" The manager paused. "We cannot give you the full information over the phone." Daniel lowered his voice. "Was it my son?" "No." Daniel felt a cold silence inside him. "Was it Claire?" Another pause. "Yes." Daniel closed his eyes. "How did she get the account number?" "We don't know." Daniel thanked the manager and ended the call. He did not feel angry. He felt tired. For years, he had believed that money could protect his family. Now he understood that money could also attract people who wanted to control it. He opened a notebook. He wrote down every event: the fake document, the missing folder, the bank attempt, the debt notices, Claire's questions, the strange account that had paid one of her loans. He drew a line between each event. Then he noticed something. The payment to Claire's loan had been made on the same day. Claire had asked Daniel about the house documents. That could not be a coincidence. Daniel searched his old emails. He found one from Claire. It had been sent 6 months earlier. At the time, it had seemed harmless. She had asked for a copy of the property papers because she wanted to organize the family records. Daniel had ignored the request. Now he understood. She had been trying to get them for months. His phone rang. It was Evan. "Dad, where are you?" "At home. I need to see you." "Come alone." Evan arrived 20 minutes later. He looked exhausted. He sat across from Daniel. "Claire hasn't come back." "Did you call her?" "Yes." "She isn't answering?" "No." Daniel pushed the loan papers toward him. Evan looked at them. Then Daniel showed him the bank access attempt. Evan's face fell. "She really tried to get the baby's money." "Yes." Evan covered his face. "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand everything tonight. I should have seen it." Daniel looked at him. "Yes." Evan lowered his hands. Daniel continued. "But she made sure you didn't." Evan looked surprised. Daniel explained what he had discovered. The missing documents, the copied signature, the old records, the bank attempt. Evan listened quietly. Then he said something Daniel had not expected. "Dad, there is another person." Daniel looked up. "What person?" "Claire's business partner." "Who?" "Her name is Melissa." Daniel frowned. "What does she have to do with this?" Evan hesitated. "Claire met her about a year ago. After that, everything changed." Daniel listened. Claire started borrowing money. She said Melissa was helping her grow the business. "Did Melissa know about the family?" "Yes." "How?" "Claire talked about you." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What did she say? That you were wealthy?" Daniel sat back. That one sentence explained more than he wanted it to. Evan continued. "She told Melissa you had investments." "How much did she know?" "I don't know." "Did she know about the house?" "Yes." "The baby's account?" Evan nodded. "She knew about that too." Daniel stood. "Then Melissa may be the person behind the money." Evan looked worried. "Dad, what should we do?" Daniel walked to the window. For several seconds he watched the street outside. Then he said something Evan did not expect. "Nothing." Evan frowned. "What?" "We don't chase Claire, but we don't threaten her. We need to stop her." "We will." Daniel turned around. "But we are going to do it legally." He opened a folder. Inside were copies of his property records. He had already started preparing them. "I am going to protect every account." Evan nodded. "And the house? I am having the title reviewed. And the baby?" "His money is already protected." Evan looked relieved. Daniel closed the folder. "But there is one more thing." "What?" "I am stopping all financial help." Evan stared at him. "You mean for us?" "Yes, Dad. You and Claire have been living with help I gave willingly." Evan looked ashamed. "Today." Evan nodded slowly. Daniel continued. "This is not revenge against you. I know. It is protection." Evan looked down. After a long silence, he said, "You're right." Daniel was surprised. Evan stood. "I need to fix what I broke." Daniel looked at his son. "You can't fix everything in one night, I know, but you can stop making it worse." Evan nodded. Before leaving, he hugged his father. Daniel did not pull away, but he did not hug him tightly either. Trust would take time. Evan left. Daniel called Mr. Harris again. This time, the attorney answered. "Daniel, where have you been?" There was silence. "I was handling something." "Claire called you." Another silence. "Yes." "What did she want?" "She wanted legal advice." "About what?" The attorney hesitated. Daniel's expression hardened. "What property?" "I can't discuss her private legal matter." "You can when my name is on the documents." Mr. Harris said nothing. Daniel's voice became calm. "Tell me the truth." Finally, the attorney sighed. "She wanted to know if she could sell the house without your approval." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. "And she cannot." Daniel closed his eyes. "Did she bring you the missing documents?" Silence. Daniel already knew the answer. "Mr. Harris." "Yes." "Did she?" The attorney finally spoke. "She brought me a folder." Daniel's heart sank. "Was it my folder?" "I believe so." Daniel stood completely still. Then Mr. Harris said something that changed everything. "There was one more document inside." "From whom?" Mr. Harris took a breath. "It was addressed to you." Daniel's voice became quiet. "What did it say?" "I don't know." "You don't know, because I never opened it." Daniel frowned. "Then where is it?" "Claire took it back." Daniel looked toward the door. "What was written on the outside?" Mr. Harris answered slowly. "Your late wife's name." Daniel felt the room go cold. His wife had been dead for 6 years. Yet someone had written her name on a letter meant for him. And suddenly, Daniel understood that the fake signature might not be the biggest secret Claire had been hiding. It might only be the first clue. Daniel did not sleep that night. The letter with his late wife's name would not leave his mind. He kept asking himself the same question. Why would Claire have a letter addressed to him in his wife's name? At 6 in the morning, Daniel called Mr. Harris again. This time, he asked for every detail. "Did Claire say where she got the letter?" "No." "Did she open it?" "I don't think so." "Did you see the envelope clearly?" "Yes." "Was it old?" "No." "It looked new." Daniel sat quietly. "Then someone made it recently." "Yes." Daniel looked toward the photograph of his wife on the desk. Her name was Margaret. She had been gentle. She had loved Evan deeply, and she had never trusted people who used family feelings to get money. Daniel remembered something she had told him shortly before she died. She had been sick at the time. One evening, while they sat together in their kitchen, Margaret had said, "Daniel, protect Evan, but don't protect him from every mistake." Daniel had not understood then. Now he did. Maybe Margaret had known that one day Evan would need to learn a hard lesson. Daniel spent the morning checking every old record he could find. Then he discovered something. 6 years earlier, Margaret had created a small emergency fund for Evan. It had never been used. Daniel had forgotten about it. The account was still active, but there was a note attached to it, a handwritten note, Margaret's handwriting. Daniel read it slowly. If anyone ever tries to use my name to control Evan, show him the truth first. Daniel's hands began to shake. Why had she written that? He searched the old records again. There was another document, a sealed letter. Daniel had never seen it before. It had been kept with Margaret's estate papers. His attorney had a copy. Daniel called him immediately. Mr. Harris, I found something. What? Margaret left a letter. There was silence. Then Mr. Harris said, Daniel, I think you should come to my office. Daniel drove there within the hour. Mr. Harris placed an old envelope on the table. It had Margaret's handwriting. Daniel recognized it immediately. His eyes filled with tears. He opened it. The letter was short. Margaret had written it shortly before her death. She explained that she had become worried about a person who had contacted Evan about a business opportunity. The person had claimed to have a way to make quick money. Margaret had warned Evan not to trust him, but she had never told Daniel the person's name. The final line made Daniel stop breathing. If something happens to me, watch anyone who suddenly becomes very interested in Evan's money. Daniel looked at Mr. Harris. Who was this person? I don't know. Daniel looked at the letter again. Then he noticed a name written in the corner. Melissa. Daniel's face went pale. The same Melissa Evan had mentioned, the same woman who had become close to Claire, the same woman connected to Claire's debts. Daniel sat back. Margaret knew her. No, Mr. Harris said. She knew about her. It appears so. Daniel suddenly understood why Claire had been so desperate. Melissa was not simply a business partner. She had been around Evan's family long before Claire knew her. Someone had introduced her to Evan years ago, and that person had been Claire. Daniel asked Mr. Harris to search old legal records. They found something within minutes. Melissa had been involved in another company years earlier. That company had failed. Several investors had lost money. One of them had been Evan's former employer. Daniel looked at the records. Then he saw another name. Claire had worked for that company before meeting Evan. Daniel felt sick. Claire had not randomly met Melissa. She had known her before. And the business Claire started later was built around the same network of people. Daniel finally saw the larger picture. Claire had debts. Melissa had a history of financial problems. They had access to Evan, but they needed Daniel's money. That was why Daniel had suddenly become the enemy. That was why Claire wanted him gone. That was why the fake documents appeared, and that was why the grandson's account had become important. But Daniel still needed proof. He did not want Evan to hear another accusation. He wanted evidence. That afternoon, Evan came to the office. Daniel showed him the old letter. Evan read it twice. Mom knew about Melissa. Apparently. Why didn't she tell me? Maybe she tried. Evan looked ashamed. Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. She may have been trying to protect you. Evan looked up. Dad, I need to tell you something. What? Claire called me. Daniel became alert. When? 10 minutes ago. She wants to meet. Where? She wouldn't tell me. Daniel shook his head. Don't go alone. I won't. Daniel looked at his son. For the first time, Evan seemed ready to face the truth. They agreed to meet Claire at a quiet restaurant, not because Daniel trusted her, because he wanted her to speak. Claire arrived 20 minutes later. She looked tired. Her confidence was gone. She sat across from them. I know what you found. Daniel said nothing. Claire looked at Evan. I never wanted this to happen. Evan's voice was cold. Then why did you do it? I was desperate. For money? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have left me. Evan shook his head. I would have helped you. Claire looked at Daniel. No, he would have asked his father. Daniel understood. She was finally admitting it. You didn't want my help, Daniel said. You wanted my money without my questions. Claire looked down. I thought I could repay it. With what? She had no answer, even leaned forward. What was Melissa doing? Claire's eyes filled with tears. She said she could fix everything, Daniel asked. And what did she want? Access to the house. Even froze. What? Claire continued. She said the house could be used as security. Daniel looked at his son. She wanted the property. Claire nodded. She said once the debt was cleared, everything would be returned. Daniel almost laughed. Nothing would have been returned. Claire lowered her head. I know that now. Evan stared at her. Why did you tell Dad he wasn't real family? Claire began crying. Because Melissa said he was the only person who could stop us. The words hung in the air. Daniel finally understood. The cruel words at the hospital had never been about family. They had been a strategy. Roam Daniel, silence him, take control of the documents, then use Evan's home and Daniel's money to solve Claire's debts. Daniel leaned back. You used my grandson's birth to get me out of the hospital. Claire nodded. I thought I had more time. Evan's face hardened. More time for what? Claire looked at him. To move the money. Evan stood. Daniel remained seated. Then Claire said something unexpected. Melissa has the original documents. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What documents? The ones with your signature. Daniel's heart stopped. Where is she? Claire looked frightened again. I don't know, Claire. She went this morning. Daniel stood. Where? Claire shook her head. I don't know. Then Evan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His face changed. What is it? Daniel asked. Evan slowly turned the phone around. There was a message from an unknown number. Only one sentence. Stop looking for the documents, or your father will lose everything. Daniel stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. A photograph. It showed the front door of Daniel's house. Someone had been standing outside, watching. Evan looked at his father. Dad. Daniel did not answer. His mind was already working. The enemy was no longer hiding behind Claire. Someone was watching his home. Someone still had the missing documents. And someone believed Daniel was still vulnerable. Daniel looked at Claire. For the first time, she looked more afraid than he was. That was when Daniel realized the final truth. Claire had not been the person controlling the plan. She had only been one piece of it, and whoever stood behind Melissa had just made the biggest mistake of all. They had threatened Daniel's family. Now Daniel was done waiting. Daniel did not react to the message. He simply looked at the photograph. His house, his front door. Someone had taken the picture from across the street. That meant the person watching him knew where he lived. They knew he was investigating, and they wanted him scared. Daniel slowly put the phone on the table. Evan, he said, don't answer that number. Evan nodded. Claire looked terrified. You don't understand, she whispered. Daniel turned toward her. Then explain. Claire looked down. Melissa has people who work for her. What people? I don't know. You knew enough to trust her with our family. Claire shook her head. I thought she was helping me. You knew she wanted the house. I didn't know what she planned to do. Evan looked at his wife. You still lied to Dad. Claire started crying. I know. Daniel did not raise his voice. He did not insult her. He simply said, then you will tell the truth. Claire looked at him. What do you mean? You will tell the police everything you know. Her face went pale. Daniel, you created fake documents. You tried to access my grandson's account. You helped someone get my private information. I didn't steal anything. You tried. Claire lowered her head. I know. Daniel stood. And you will help me get the documents back. Claire looked at Evan. He nodded. You need to tell the truth. Claire finally agreed. The next morning, Daniel met with his attorney. He had already taken steps to protect everything important. His bank accounts were secured. The grandson's account was moved into a protected trust. The property records were flagged. No one could sell or transfer the house without proper verification. Daniel also gave his attorney copies of every message, document, and photograph. Then he made one final decision. He stopped all financial support for Evan and Claire. The attorney looked at him. Yes. Even for your son? Daniel took a breath. Yes. He was not abandoning Evan. He was refusing to finance the chaos. Evan understood. He moved into a small apartment. It was not comfortable, but for the first time in years, he was living within his own means. Claire stayed with her sister while the investigation continued. Her business collapsed within weeks. The debts she had hidden became public to Evan. The truth about Melissa also came out. Melissa had been using people for years. She found families with assets. She gained their trust. Then she created financial pressure. Claire had not been her first target. She had simply been the latest. The missing folder was eventually recovered. Melissa had tried to use the documents to create a false claim against Daniel's property, but Daniel's attorney had already reported the missing records. The plan failed. Melissa was arrested after investigators connected her to several financial crimes. Claire cooperated with the investigation. Her actions still had consequences. She faced legal trouble for her role in the fake documents and attempted account access. Daniel never celebrated her suffering. He did not need to. The truth was enough, but one thing remained. Even weeks passed before Daniel felt ready to see him again. One Saturday morning, Evan arrived at Daniel's house. He stood at the door with a small box in his hands. Daniel opened it. Inside was the blue baby blanket, the same blanket Daniel had carried out of the hospital. Evan looked down. I found it in the car. Daniel touched the blanket. You kept it? I couldn't throw it away. Daniel nodded. Evan swallowed. Dad, I'm sorry. Daniel did not answer immediately. Evan continued. I should have looked at him. You should have. I believed Claire when I shouldn't have. Yes, I let her make you feel like you didn't belong. Daniel looked away. That sentence hurt, even now, but he could see the regret in his son's eyes. Do you want forgiveness? Asked. Evan nodded. I do. Daniel handed him the blanket. Then earn it. Evan looked confused. How? By being honest. Evan nodded. Daniel continued. And by protecting your son from the mistakes you made. Evan's eyes filled with tears. I will. Daniel finally stepped aside. Come in. Evan entered. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. A few minutes later, Evan's phone rang. He smiled. It's the hospital. Daniel's heart skipped. Kay? Evan nodded. They want us to come in. Daniel looked at the blue blanket, then at his son. Are they allowing me this time? Evan smiled sadly. Dad, you're his grandfather. Daniel looked down. Those simple words meant more than Evan could understand. They drove to the hospital together. When Daniel entered the room, he saw his grandson for the first time. The baby was tiny. His eyes were closed. His little hand moved slowly. Daniel stood beside the crib. He did not touch him at first. He was afraid the moment might disappear. Then Evan said, Go ahead. Daniel gently picked up the baby. The child stopped crying. Daniel smiled. For months, he had dreamed about this moment. It was different from what he imagined. But it was better, because now he knew what the moment was worth. Even stood beside him. I wish Mom could see him. Daniel looked at the baby. She would have loved him. Then Daniel noticed something. The baby's hospital bracelet had been placed beside the crib. The name was written clearly, Noah Carter. Daniel smiled. His grandson had his family's name, not because of money, not because of property, because he belonged. Later that evening, Daniel sat alone in the hospital cafeteria. His phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. For a moment, he thought it might be another threat. But the message was different. It contained only one sentence. You were right not to trust Claire. Daniel stared at the screen. Then another message arrived. But there is one thing she never told you. Daniel's expression changed. He looked toward Evan's room. The investigation had already uncovered enough to explain the money, enough to explain the fake documents, enough to explain why Claire wanted him gone. But this message suggested there was still another secret. Daniel did not reply. He turned the phone off. For once, he did not chase the next answer. He had spent too long fighting to protect his family. Now he wanted to enjoy the family he still had. Months later, Daniel visited Evan's home. The relationship between father and son was slowly healing. It was not perfect. There were still difficult conversations. But there was honesty now. Claire was no longer part of their daily lives. The house was safe. The grandson's money was protected. And Daniel had stopped measuring his worth by how others treated him. One evening, Evan stood at the front door. Dad. Daniel turned. Thank you. For what? For walking away that day. Daniel frowned. Evan continued. If you had stayed and argued, I might never have looked at the papers. Daniel smiled. Sometimes leaving is the only way people realize what they are about to lose. Evan nodded. Daniel walked outside. Behind him, he heard his grandson laughing. He stopped for a moment. The same family that had once told him he was not real family had finally understood something. Family was not decided by who had the loudest voice. It was not decided by money. And it was not decided by one cruel sentence. Family was built through trust. And when that trust was broken, it had to be earned again. Daniel had lost his place in his son's home for a while, but he had never truly lost his place in his grandson's life, and that was the revenge that mattered most. Daniel thought he had lost his family the day his daughter-in-law told him, "You're not real family." But sometimes, walking away is not the end of a relationship. Sometimes it is the moment the truth finally comes out. Daniel lost his place at his grandson's birth, but he never lost his dignity. He protected his grandson, uncovered the betrayal, and gave his son a chance to see the truth for himself. And perhaps the biggest lesson is this: you should never have to beg someone to treat you like family. If this story touched you, tell us in the comments. What would you have done if your own family told you that you were not real family? Would you have walked away quietly like Daniel, or would you have confronted them? If you enjoyed this emotional revenge story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful family betrayal, revenge, and justice stories. And remember, sometimes the strongest revenge is not hurting the people who hurt you. It is walking away, protecting your peace, and letting the truth speak for itself.